What's up, Colts Nation? Hello, No Horse and Family. Welcome back to another episode, live stream, family time edition of the No Horsing Around podcast. As always, I am one of two dudes talking Colts. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen Burton, and I'm flying solo on this one a little bit today, you guys. So it's going to be fan takeover. It's No Horsing Around Family Takeover Edition. It's what do you guys want to talk about? What do we want to cover? We can talk a little bit about last week with the Eagles game, kind of what's transpired throughout this week, Jeff Saturday. We can talk a little bit of draft if you guys want to. We can even discuss coming up Pittsburgh Monday Night Football. So it's going to be interesting. I'm excited to kind of go around with you guys. I'm going to let you guys really kind of drive it today as we kind of punch through and kind of go through this. Bailey, thank you so much for jumping in here. I'm going to pop you up. Thank you. We're going to get to that. We're going to talk about the game. We're going to talk about the Colts-Steelers game. We're definitely going to discuss what we think. You guys know we always give our predictions on here when it comes to that game. But before we kind of get into anything, as always, you guys, please like, share, subscribe, comment, all those great things that we love from you guys. And if you feel the need, definitely support the family, right? We say it all the time. You can do it through numerous different ways. There's a level 1, a level 2, level 3, $1.99, $2.99, $4.99. These are per month. It helps kind of keep the lights on to the channel, helps us kind of get cool new equipment and go different places. We're going to be looking at, to kind of let a little bit of cat out of the bag. Last year we weren't able to go. We were credentialed, but weren't able to go. Senior Bowl, Combine, Draft, things that we like to try to do. That's done through support through you guys. And if you guys want to, you guys can also just give one-time donations, like a tip jar, like just anything. You can drop in like $1.99 during the chat if you want to. If you're new to it and you really want to make sure we don't skip a question, which we tend not to, you guys can do that too. So let's kind of jump in and let's kind of see what you guys what are you guys thinking today? What do you guys want to talk about? Ravens, come on, Colts beat the Steelers. We're in Baltimore, would be grateful. We in Baltimore would be grateful. Hey, hey. I'm all for that. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about, and we'll kind of start with this, is the overall Jeff Saturday experiment 2 weeks in, right? I think we can all safely assume and safely say that if we had been able to close out that game against the Eagles, Jeff Saturday's 2-0 as a head coach, there's probably a lot of crow that's being eaten. You're probably kind of, cock of the walk a little bit, walking around with Jim Irsay, and he's probably feeling pretty good about himself. He definitely was after the Vegas game. Didn't really say anything after the Eagles game, which is kind of been par for the course for this season. But 2 weeks, what do we think? Is it a big enough sample size to figure, like, if I were to ask you guys right now, we did a poll on the No Horsing Around YouTube channel page on if I were to ask you guys right now, what if you wanted, after 2 games, if you wanted to keep Jeff Saturday as the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. And it's kind of crazy, like when you look at our poll, it had 1.5K votes on it, and 83% said yes, that they would want him back. Now, I would love to know why. I'm not saying I'm for it. I'm not saying I'm against it. I would love to know why we're feeling that. I mean, 1.5K votes and 83% said yes, they would love him back. Now, I think that they've gotten a much needed bump, obviously. I think he's brought some juice to it. I think he's brought some much needed accountability to the room. But the question is always, and my boy Zach has asked this too, is what can you actually expect from him? He's in a very bad situation with a team that doesn't seem to be clicking the way that it should be. What do we think? Like, do we think that he can? What kind of, are we looking record, or are we looking performance? Right? Like, record wise, he's 1-1, but the game he lost, they were very competitive in. Like, so how do we feel about that? Is that what we're looking for? I've kind of always said when it comes to Jeff Saturday and what he really might pursue in regards to the head coaching position in 2023 is it's how you look more than your record. If he were to win, he took over with 8 games left. Let's say he went 3 5 in those 8 games. But in those 5 losses, they look really competitive like they did last Sunday. I think that goes a long way. I think it's what he wants too. Me and Zach have talked about this, and I chimed in on the live stream last week when I was down with the flu. Was I think he wants to be a coach more than he wants to be in the office. You hear about his happy place being like he just wanted to touch grass. So his happy place was just, I just want to be out. I'm most comfortable when I'm with the team. I'm most comfortable in that locker room. And that's not really what a GM does. So it leads me to believe that I think he wants to be a coach, but it's got 6 weeks left. So we'll see. Tom Williams, thank you for jumping in here, man. I appreciate it. Colts will beat the Steelers, should have beaten the Birds last week. And he also says, he might be the GM next season. I think that's it's a really solid point. I will say, like, I don't think that that's what he may want, but that's me personally. But I think that's a consensus view across the board in regards to what people think. I think they really think that that's something that looks like, look at the whole situation to begin with, right? We discussed it on here. It was interesting to see. Hey, he's coming in. I think the gist was he's coming in to evaluate everybody who's in that building and then probably take a step back and go into the front office after he's able to tell Ursa, hey, this is what I think. These are the guys that you should keep. These are the guys that should go. These are some coaches that are good on the staff. These are some coaches that aren't. I've said it from the beginning. I think he answers to nobody but Irsay. Tom Johnson, Ballard needs to touch the grass. I'm gonna not disagree. Ballard's a whole different conversation. Which, if you guys are in the chat, if you're joining us, this is fan takeover tonight, you guys. This is the No Horsing Around family takeover. Your questions will drive it. So, Tom, Ravens, Bailey, if you've got a question, you got a topic that you want to touch on about the beloved Indianapolis Colts that we support, drop it in there, and we'll make sure that we hit on it, and we'll make sure that we cover it. Okay. I'm letting you guys drive the stream tonight in regards to what we discuss. It's a great segue. Do we think Ballard, that's something that Zach has talked about. We've had Chase Boyd on, we've had Kevin Bowen on, we've had Kent Sterling on recently to discuss this. And kind of the consensus across the board is that, we all kind of think Ballard's on his way out at the end of this season, right? You have, I don't know how much on board he was with wanting to get rid of Carson Wentz. You have that. You have the benching of Matt Ryan, the firing of Frank Reich, the hiring of Jeff Saturday. I don't think any of these really were things that were Chris Ballard's idea, right? And for the first time, when we look at that press conference from a few weeks ago with Jeff Saturday, it's the first time in a long time that he did not look Ballard-wise to own that room. He's always owned the room, controlled the mic, controlled the tone of the meeting. He's always done that. And that's the first time that he didn't. And I also think this is the first time in his tenure here that he does not have sole possession of Jim Irsay's ear, which is interesting because I think Irsay has always believed in Ballard. I think a lot of us did. So, like, fun story is I had somebody at me on Twitter today with a tweet of mine from a year ago, which was "In Ballard We Trust," right? And then another tweet of mine saying when the Eagles were pressing for more than what we wanted to give for Carson Wentz, and they were messing with the wrong guy. So you can dig up anybody's tweets, right? But we were all in that boat at one point. And where are we now? A lot of people probably don't believe in Ballard because of the way his philosophy has worked out. Here we go. Let's see. So Tom says there were way too many Eagles fans at Lucas Oil last week. Come on, Colts Nation. Hey, man. It's Monday Night Football. Okay. It's Monday Night Football. The Colts have not had a lot of primetime games. Like we don't get a lot. We just haven't gotten a lot over the last few years. You get a Monday night game against a traditional team, against a historical team, with a coach that I adore, Mike Tomlin. With a young team, a winnable game. Now, here's the fun fact, Tom. Like you mentioned this, man, the Steelers travel really, really well. Like that's going to be interesting to see. We're not out of the we're not out of the playoffs yet. Like we're not sitting here as the Houston Texans. We're still mathematically in. I think Kent Sterling said today on Breakfast with Kent, I think it's a 7% chance to make the playoffs at this point. And I would love to get you guys, like I would love to kind of poll the room and see, are you would you rather see them win, right? Or would you rather see them lose and get a higher pick? Like if I told you these two things were going to happen, I'm gonna give credit to Lawrence, my boy over at Believe in Colts and Colts Law, with an amazing tweet today that kind of was a poll, and it was: would you rather, if I told you for a fact the Colts will lose most of their games, but they'll end up with like the 12th pick, right? Or they could go on a heater, win 6 of their last 7, and have a chance at the playoffs, right? I'm not going to say that they're going to make it, but you have that chance. They go 9-7. Which one are you taking? I mean, me and Zach are really similar with this. I'm just the proponent of, I want to see my team win. Like I want to see my team win. I don't want to tune in on Monday and Sunday or Thursday and see them lose. Like, come on, guys. Like this is kind of how I sit. And Tom's with me. Just win, man. Just win. Um, we wait 6 months for this season to start, right? Like season's over in January or February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. Like you wait 6 or 7 months to see your team. I'm not going to cheer for the season to end early. Do I want a higher pick? Do I want a quarterback? Yes, but that's something we can talk about too that I've been a big proponent on, and I would love to see what you guys think, is like I've said over and over, I think the Colts, one, are too good to get into the top 5 to lose that many games. I could be wrong, but I think that they're too good to lose too many games. They've won 4. The worst team has won 1, and they just replaced their quarterback. Like Davis Mills has been benched, right? So you have that. Excuse me. And then on top of that, there's no guarantee. Like there's no guarantee Bryce Young is going to be great. There's no guarantee CJ Stroud's going to be. I put out a tweet recently that listed some of the whiffs. Like we're talking like Zach Wilson, right? Like Zach Wilson just got benched. He was the 2nd overall pick. Can't miss. Colts Nation, the time when 2021 coming out, I heard names playmaker, dynamic. And everyone thought that we were going after him. Like that was a thing. He rose up the board. I was hesitant because of how fast he rose up. But you look at things like that. You look at Mitchell Trubisky going in front of Mahomes and Watson, right? You look at Lamar going at 32. But then you look at guys like Justin Fields, Mac Jones going around, like I think Justin Fields was 11, Mac Jones was like 15. Like that's where the trade-ups that you need to make are there if you want to, I believe, right? I think Tom says that we have enough draft capital to move up if we want to. I think that's 100% the case. I think you could move up and you can get yourself. I don't think there's any guarantee that CJ Stroud and Bryce Young are this generational talent, right? They're the best in this class, but now you have people picking apart this. Last year, everyone saying, well, look to this class, right? Look to the next one. There you got all these great talented players. Now this year, people are saying, now you hear people like Dan Orlovsky and other people saying, well, let's wait because next year's class, you got Drake Mays from North Carolina. You got Caleb Williams coming out. You got so there's always a reason to try to kick it down the road. But if they're like the big proponent is if you have somebody in this class that you want, if it's a Will Levis, if it's a Hendon Hooker, if it's an Anthony Richardson that you feel like that's your dude, go get him. And I think those 3 guys are completely available if you're sitting there in the top 15 with maneuverability, because there's going to be teams ahead of you like a Bears, like an Eagles, like a Seahawks potentially, that aren't going to be looking for a quarterback. But so, and that's something we could talk about. Tell me who you like. I know we're sitting here, we're talking about this. We're going to get to the Steelers and things like that. But who do you like? Who do you like coming out? Who's somebody that maybe spit me a name that I've never heard of? Oh, yes. There's my man. Inside the Horseshoe Podcast. Great stuff. If you guys haven't ever watched him, you're missing it. Make sure after this live stream you click over, check him out. He does great stuff. He's been on the show here before. I love his stuff. He does an amazing job. He says, assuming Ballard is the GM, I believe he will be. I wonder what quarterback he wants. I'm hoping Hooker is the guy. Hey, man, I mean, it's a great question, right? Like, you try to get inside Ballard's head. Who does he like? I think there's a couple of different things, right? There's a couple of different options when it comes to who I think. If I were to go inside Ballard's head, I think his ultimate favorite is probably CJ Stroud, just because he adores those Big Ten players. He loves the Ohio State program. He loves the Big Ten programs. Just look at the players that we've drafted from the Big Ten, right? He scouts that really well. I think that's probably the one, but I think he knows like that's not really. I don't think that's a possibility. I'm a big Hooker guy. I like Hendon Hooker. I live in Tennessee. You guys know that. The ACL tear recently does worry me a little bit. He's definitely going to drop. He will be available because I think he's going to drop lower in the draft now. He's 25, I believe. I think he just turned 25 or he's getting ready to turn 25. So the worry would be that he's going to miss a year, which he'll be 26. So before he takes a snap for you, he's 27. So that's a slight concern with him, but I think he's very talented. I've yet to really, really dive in. Like I have my favorites. Anthony Richardson has intrigued me a little bit more lately, kind of watching him as someone who could sit and develop. I'm a big Will Levis guy. That's going to get me a lot of heat, but I am a big Will Levis guy too. But and I think, we're not going to gloss over where assuming Ballard is the GM, which you believe he will be. I've kind of stayed away on predictions on what I think. I think if Ballard aligns with Sad, like I don't know. Like I sit and I wonder sometimes because I think Irsay, we talk a lot about Irsay meddling now. I don't think that's what he wants to do. He does not want to meddle, and a lot of people can say he does, but the proof is kind of in the details, right? Like he didn't meddle with Polian. He didn't meddle with Grigson. He didn't meddle with Ballard till right now. He's picked his, a lot of people will talk about, oh, he's like, and he's off the reservation. He's doing all these different things. But, you look at his track record. When he gets the people there that he trusts, he puts his whole trust in them. He fully trusts Bill Polian and Tony Dungy. He trusted Jim Caldwell. He trusted Pagano. He trusts Frank Reich. I think he trusts Jeff Saturday a tremendous amount at this point as the interim. He fully trusts, Chris Ballard. And I think it's kind of a misnomer a little bit with him that he's this like fly by the seat of your pants owner. I think because he's a little wacky, a little kooky sometimes. I think because he's a little socially awkward. I think Zach Kiefer said it best. Like he's just not the best speaker sometimes. That people get the wrong idea about how he operates the Colts. Tom Williams, wasn't the Jets quarterback supposed to be one of the best? So, going back to Zach Wilson, I'm not going to say he was supposed to be one of the best. He had a very dynamic arm. He was very athletic. He's coming out of BYU, which was a smaller school, obviously. The last quarterback BYU actually produced into the NFL was probably Steve Young. Before that was Jim McMahon. Like they came in and actually did some stuff in the NFL. They played a lot of late night games. They didn't play a lot of big time programs. Had an amazing pro day. Really, really shot up. I believe in the beginning of the draft process, and I was hanging with, 2021, I was hanging with Rashad over from the previously the Blue Stable, but Stampede Blue now. And we were talking about it, and he was a very fast riser, which worried me a lot. I don't like people who fast rise outside of the football season, right? Like you fast rise because of your pro day, because of your combine, because of the measurables. It's very concerning because the tape is the tape, right? And he played well, but he was very young, which was unusual too for coming out of BYU. Most of their players are much older. So it was interesting. He moved up very quickly. I'm not going to say he was supposed to be one of the best, but People were really, really high on him. We're very, very high on him. Uh, yeah, thank you. No problem. You guys are amazing. Colts house. Well. What do we have here? Hey, man. Hey, we're having a fan takeover. Like I said before, anybody who's listening, anybody who's watching, anybody who is not active in the chat, if you have something you want to talk about tonight, we're talking about it, man, because it's just me and y'all. It's just me and y'all the day before everyone gets fat and happy on turkey, ham, and stuffing or whatever it else is that you eat. Heck, we may even talk about what's your favorite Thanksgiving dish to eat while watching the Lions tomorrow. So if you've got something, drop it in, right? So let's kind of talk a little bit about. Oh, let's see. Wait, before I jump in. Oh, there we go. Got a bunch of questions. Should I just start firing them off? Absolutely, man. Absolutely, Colts House. Go ahead and hit me with some of your questions, and we'll kind of go in. We'll work our way through them. And if anybody else has any, drop them in. If you want to make sure for a fact, if it starts to go that I don't miss, you can always hit the super chat and it'll ting it right to the top. And I won't miss that question. But go ahead, man, fire them out. I'm ready to go. I'll do my best to answer any of them that you guys have. Okay, here we go. First hot takes. Maniac should be traded for draft capital. Woo! So that doesn't sound like a question. That sounds like you are saying he should be. I don't I that's a tough one, man. Like, so I'm not gonna say I love Shaquille. I love Shaquille Leonard. I think he is an amazing linebacker. I think it was just a weird year for him. I don't think he was ever fully healthy. The nerve regeneration is a very scary thing. I don't foresee them moving him. I think it outside of the injuries, I think the interesting part with him this season was more of they couldn't really, for some reason, find a way. Now he didn't play much, but they didn't find a fit for him in Gus Bradley's defense, which was really weird. Like Zaire has played amazing, and that defense has been tailored to what he does. Shaquille was way more tailored for what Eberflus did and kind of being able to float around. And they didn't really find a position. I'm with Pat McAfee. At one point, he said this that find a position, find a place to put him in. He's one of your best players. I don't foresee them trading him. One, he's injured. Two, he has a very large contract. And three, he is a heartbeat when it comes to the defense. It's a very hot take. There are definitely players on this team that are on there this year that will not be here next year. There will be players that we love, that we have probably grown to love, that might not be here next year. I'm talking, some of the ones that I think Orion Kelly could probably be on the move. You guys have heard me say that a lot. I think he could be on the move. I think I'm curious to see what happens with Paris Campbell, and I love Paris Campbell, right? I think there's several players on the O line. I think there's some players on the defense. It's going to be really interesting offseason. It's going to be kind of a little wild to see what happens, especially if when Black Monday rolls around, if Ballard gets his pink slip and we're getting a new GM and a new head coach. It's going to be really interesting to see kind of what happens. Next one up. Should we spend everything next year on working the O-line or quarterback? Okay. So I don't know why you guys spend everything on one or the other, right? If there is not a quarterback in the first round, first and foremost, I am steadfast against trading for another veteran quarterback, right? And what's funny is you hear there's a couple that are out there on that market right now that I would have loved like 2 years ago. I would have loved Derek Carr like 2 years ago. But now we're on this horse, we're on this train, we're on this Ferris wheel that keeps going around and around, the carousel, right? And I don't want to be stuck on that. I want to go get the young guy, right? But if you're sitting at pick 14, and let's say you like a Hendon Hooker and you want to get him late in the first or in your second round pick, if you think he's going to be there, and you go and you get probably like an elite left tackle, right? In the beginning of the first round. That's probably sitting there, or another elite playmaker. I get what you're saying with going kind of all in on the quarterback, because if you're going all in, and that's the question for the chat too. Like, if you're going all in on a quarterback, does that mean all in like you're going to go from pick 14 to pick like 3? right? You're going to jump up there and you're going to get pick 3, 2, wherever the Bears are. Like, that's the trade. You're giving away all of this draft capital to do it. Is that what you're talking about? Because I don't foresee that unless there's this new GM that comes in where it's like, woo, and we're just partying and we're just going all in. I don't foresee them giving up like 2 firsts, a second, and a third to get up into the top 5. I could be wrong. It'd be a hell of a fun time to see, right? To suddenly see our Colts jump up because they've never done that. I do think there's a really good possibility they trade up if their guy who they want is slipping. Let's say a Bryce Young is slipping or a CJ Stroud is slipping. Or let's say they really like Will Levis, which like the reports are like when I bring him up, and I bring him up because 1, I do like him, and 2, the reports have been that they've been to 4 of his games, supposedly, and the report is they've been to 3 of Anthony Richardson's games. Those are guys that I think you can easily get, maybe at the pick that you're at. So it's a great question to kind of figure out what you think. Oh yes, I'm loving this, you guys. The questions are starting to really come in. Colts House, he's too banged up, bro. We all love him. He's too much of a liability at this point. Talking about Shaq. He'd been very banged up. The question is, does this surgery fix? Because the bang-ups, truthfully, were the ankle and the back, and they're kind of connected. The concussion to the nose were very fluky this year. He got hit in the face, caved his face mask in, broke his nose, a game of concussion. It was very fluky. You hope that this surgery, maybe they finally did figure it out. So I'm not sure if I would quite go on board with that. I personally would like to get a true franchise left tackle, which may be another hot take since everybody wants to trade up and get the hottest quarterback. Hey, I mean, it's all true. Like it's like the chicken and the egg, right? Like which one do you need more? You kind of need both. I'm interested to see how is I think it's Matt Ryan called him Bernie. How Bernie plays the rest of this season, right? Like how does he look? Does he develop? He's going to take lumps. Saturday's going to let him take these lumps. He's not going to pull them from the lineup. Does he take the lumps and does he look good? Like that's the idea, right? Like Ballard has found those diamonds in the rough in round 2 and 3. He struggled in round 1 sometimes, but he's found those 2s and 3s, and that's where you got him. And could he be the guy? And could that free up the quarterback? I think that was everybody's hope with Sam Ehlinger too at one point was he was going to be like the dude, and then you didn't have to worry. But he's not the dude. He's the backup to the dude, and you got to go find the dude, right? It's just how it is. If there's some way, Colts House, if there's some way we can manage the both, I'd also like to grab another true franchise corner. That's a good point. That's another person that I would say that we love as Colts fans. That I don't know if he's back. I don't think Kenny Moore's back, y'all. Like I think he's probably going to be gone after this season. I think he might end up in if I was a betting man, which I've been before with BetStamp and finding the best odds and all those things. But if I were a betting man, I would probably say he ends up in Chicago if he leaves because he fit that Eberflus system to a T. You got Gilly Lock for one more year, supposing that you don't trade him in the offseason. He's done a great job. I think Isaiah Rodgers is very much a burgeoning true corner. He's an amazing playmaker. He just needs to be on the field more, and I think we're all seeing that now. But that's a great point too. I mean, and really truthfully, it's going to depend also how much do we clean house? Is Gus Bradley gone? Are we bringing in a new system? Ballard has always felt that you ran a 4-3. He built that for that system, the defense for that system. If he's gone, do you get someone else in here who they want to do it a different way? There's a lot of question marks that are going to come from this offseason. There we go. Noisyac, thank you so much for jumping in here. Appreciate it. I feel like the defense has been doing good without him, but nerve recovery usually takes a very long time, especially the back area. I also don't want him to return and get slammed by Henry. Oh, everyone's always talking about the hit from Henry, right? Hey, that's the concern. Truthfully, that is a concern. I mean, it's a nerve, it's a back. This isn't an ankle. This isn't, I mean, it caused the ankle, but this isn't like a wrist. This isn't a knee where you're like used to what that timeline looks like. It's going to be very interesting to see kind of what it transpires. I don't foresee them trading him. I really don't. But it'll be interesting to see what happens other than that. Colts House. I trust in Ziggy Smalls. Believe it or not, I think we could build around our run game and a quarterback that's smart enough to find the deep ball and really build around our blocks. All right, so it's a great point. Okay, Zaire, I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he has shown for a fact that he can play at this level. He can be, guys, he's the leading tackler in the NFL, right? Like he is the leading tackler in the NFL. So I think he's done an amazing job. I think he's not going anywhere. As far as building around the run game and a quarterback that's smart enough to find the deep ball, I think that leads to an issue that we've discussed on this show before. Matt Ryan, for some reason, has shown, and I think it's because of the lack of the line protection. He's been hit a lot, he's been sacked a lot, but he's shown kind of this massive hesitancy to push the ball down the field, which brings everybody forward, right? Brings the safeties forward, and because they don't think you're going to go over the top of them, and it makes everything harder, right? The wide receiver screens, the halfback screens, the crossers, running the ball. It makes everything more difficult. And that's that. I'm not going to say you should be here, but that was the difference with Carson Wentz last year as opposed to this year. Carson Wentz does have a cannon for an arm, and because of that, you had to defend every single square inch of that field, right? Like he could put the ball anywhere. Was it always like picture perfect? No, but he had the arm that scared people, and Matt Ryan doesn't right now. It's not to say I think he's got a lot up here. I think he's got a lot of intelligence when it comes to the game, but I don't think he has the arm to put it in those tight windows, and that's greatly affecting the offense. I mean, there's a reason why you go from a top 10 offense to one of the worst offenses in the NFL, and you were supposed to have been an upgrade at quarterback. There's a reason, right? And there's a reason why the Falcons were okay to trade him when they have Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder. There's a reason for all this, you guys. So, and I think that's the frustration this year with Matt Ryan for us too. Like jumping around, it's a frustration because we were told as Colts fans that this was an upgrade, that Matt Ryan was an upgrade from Carson Wentz. And he might be, like mentally, leadership-wise, in the locker room-wise, experience-wise, and relationship-wise. Like a lot of things. He is not an upgrade on him by the arm. I'm just going to say that. Like the arm is not an upgrade. Like it's caused some big issues. And you're averaging 14 some odd points a game. I think someone put a stat out and said if the Colts had scored 21 points in all their games, they'd be 8. Like I think they said 8-3. I mean, come on. Colts house. I feel like Kenny needs to be put on notice too. Yep, that's what we were just talking about. Yeah, I mean, I think he's a guy who it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the offseason. Hey, Basil Fwadi 241, welcome back, man. Thank you so much. I'm glad you were able to jump in here. You guys are going to go ape shit when Ballard drafts a cornerback with the first pick. Oh, that would be bad, right? Like, what would be worse? What would be worse? Him drafting that or trading back, right? What would be what would cause people to go even crazier? Or would it be he trades up for the corner? It's so early on the draft. I don't know if there's a corner that's up there like that, but it looks that would, yeah, I think everyone would have a complete and utter meltdown. Noisic, and if I'm saying it wrong, man, I am so sorry. I also really want Levis, and if Ballard isn't Ballard, hell, I'll take Bryce Young too. So Bryce Young is going to be gone. Like I think he'll slip, and we'll get into a lot of this stuff when we get to more draft talk. But I think he'll slip because of his size a little bit. But I don't think you're going to be able to get up high enough to get him. Tom Williams sitting in the airport listening to you. Hey man, I appreciate it, man. Now make sure when you get on that flight that you turn it in airplane mode. You can always. That's the misconception with these live streams. You can always go back and listen to them later. As much as I love having you in the chat, don't get in trouble with TSA. Basil, Levis looks like Eason 2.0. He's not looked all that good lately. Hey, that's true. I don't think he looks like Eason. Eason had a cannon for an arm, and that was kind of it. Levis is playing with a much weaker team, not as strong a supporting cast. He's had injuries this year, which has limited his athletic ability to move out of the pocket. There's reasons that we can make for anything, but he's also at Kentucky, right? Like he's at Kentucky, and Kentucky's been really good lately, but it is Kentucky football. So let's see. Yeah, but we got to realize he just played Georgia. That's absolutely true, and he kept it close, which is better than some of the other teams this year, right? Uh, and now we're going to kind of go a little bit. Everyone sucks when they play Georgia's D. What about the kid from Georgia, Tom Williams? I'm assuming you are talking about Stetson Bennett. Um, we'll get more into him. You know, he's an older quarterback, two-time walk-on, one-time national title. I mean, it's a great story. It's a great question. People have brought him up before. He's had a much better year. I'm not real high on him. I truly believe at Georgia, and I watch a lot of college football, right? I do believe at Georgia, most quarterbacks you could probably drop them in with that defense and those playmakers, and they'd be playing really well. Uh, Basil, I'm not confident in any of the quarterbacks. Okay, so I've not scrolled all the way down yet. Basil, if you've already answered this, that's great. If not, I would love to hear from you. If you're not confident in any of the quarterbacks, what's your solution, right? Are you going to go get a veteran? You're going to roll with another year of Matt Ryan? Or are you going to roll the dice on one this year? Or are you going to wait till next year and kind of sacrifice another year of your core? Tom, Ballard better not trade Gilly Lock. The question is it going to be Ballard's decision? Is he going to be here, right? Colts house. Our secondary will crumble if we don't upkeep it. We will need to keep Kenny. He'll prove himself. We'll need to add more. Nick Cross, I feel, will develop. So Nick Cross is a great point, right? So Nick Cross was labeled the starter. They started him and they pulled him. We had Derek Larger on a while back, and he brought up that he felt that could ruin a person's confidence, right? That could absolutely ruin his confidence as a player. He's very talented. I think the system has fit McLeod better, and so he's been in there. We'll see what happens with him. The secondary, Julian Blackman, I think we'll see more from him next year. Obviously, a full year after his ACL or after his Achilles, which tends to be what it takes. The secondary has been strong. I think Isaiah Rodgers takes another step next year, more than likely, and we'll kind of see. Basil, yeah, and versus Vanderbilt the game prior. Yes, I know we're talking about Levis again. Levis has not had a strong couple of games. I'm a believer in him, but that's just me. Like, we'll talk more about it. There's my man Zach. I miss you. Have a happy Thanksgiving. I'm sure we'll talk throughout the holidays. Colts house. So that leaves our linebackers and developing our D line and a creative defensive play caller. Okay, so are we talking now? Now here's a question, Colts house. Are we talking about creative defensive play caller in regards to the coordinator, or are you talking about if Saturday's not the head coach come 2023, you are looking for a defensive minded head coach like a D'Amico Ryans? That's a very hot name, right? Is that what you're talking about? And as far as our linebackers and developing our D line, those are two really strong suits, right? Like, I think Zaire's played really well. EJ Speed has played well. Shaquille, if he's still, I mean, Shaquille, in my opinion, I'm gonna go off. He's still here. Shaquille is a playmaker, is the heart and soul of your defense. D line, Grover's played well. DeForest has played well. I think Adangbo has started to develop more. I think Quiddy has started to develop more. I'm a little worried because he keeps getting hurt, and I like Unique. I think he's going to be back, probably on a cheaper deal, but I think he'll probably be back next year too. So, I mean, I want to hear from what you have to say. I want to see, like, are you talking as you want to replace Gus Bradley because the defense has been top 5, in my opinion, this year? Or are you saying you would like a more defensive-minded head coach and going away from kind of that offensive-minded head coach? Golden Era Hip Hop Forever, thank you for joining the chat. Much appreciated. If you want to subscribe, join the family, ding the bell, do all those things. And if you are coming into the chat right now, please, you guys, drop your questions, drop your comments. We're going through all of them. I'm being led by you guys today. We're going to be on here for probably another 20 or 30 minutes. So lead me, and we'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about, except for the very end. We're going to touch on the Steelers. I'm going to get y'all's predictions. We're going to give you mine, and we'll kind of do a little bit of that too. Golden Era Hip Hop Forever. I'm really starting to like Max Duggan, the QB from TCU. Where do you think he falls in the 2023 NFL draft, and should the Colts draft him? I'm not going to lie. Like, I don't, and my boy Mike P over at Blue Stable would kill me for this. I don't know a ton about Max. I know he idolizes Trevon Boykins. from TCU. I know he's a mobile quarterback with a good arm. I know TCU is a very good team this year with a very good head coach. Uh, I've not seen him listed very high in regards to kind of where people are listing. The list that I tend to see is CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Will Levis, and then I see like what's his name? Cam Ward from Washington State's up there. I see Hendon Hooker is up there sometimes. I see the quarterback from Stanford. I think it's McInnes. So I see those names. I haven't seen his name a lot, but as we get closer, obviously the end of the season's coming up for them. Headed into the college football playoff, we'll see. But as that's coming up, we'll kind of get more into really delving in. My boy Zach is amazing at this stuff. And like I said, we got credentialed last year for the Senior Bowl. Spoiler alert, like we're going to get credentialed again this year and actually try to make the trip. COVID kind of prevented that for me last year, but actually try to make the trip down to Mobile and see some of these senior quarterbacks and see what they will. And a lot of people always want to bring up Caleb Williams, that they want to draft him. Caleb Williams is not eligible till the following year. So like you're going to have to suck next year, and because he's going to probably be the number one quarterback taken. Let's see. Noisick. Because we got Chris Ballard, I don't think this is going to happen, but I think we should draft Levis, keep Ryan, and start Levis for a few games, and also start Ryan for a few. Okay, so that's not outside the realm. So I've heard that, right? Like I have heard that because that's the Mahomes, right? Like that's the Mahomes Alex Smith game plan. You draft your quarterback that you want. You have your veteran who's sitting there, and you let your veteran play while your rookie learns, and then you get him in some of the games near the tail end of the year, right? That's Mahomes and Alex Smith. Alex Smith was a very good quarterback. He led them to the playoffs. He had his best season ever the year that they drafted Mahomes, but they moved off of him because they knew what they had with Mahomes, and obviously they were right. I think this, honestly, you trace back long enough, man, I think this was the plan with Phillip Rivers back in the day. I think they wanted Phillip for 2 years. I think they thought they were going to have a chance to draft somebody. You know, you go back to, like, my thing is, like, if you had Phillip Rivers for 2 years, do you maybe take that swing on Justin Fields instead of making that trade for Carson Wentz? Y'all know on this channel, like, how much we adore Justin Fields. Like, that was the guy. Like, going into the draft, for me and Zach, we both really liked him. Excuse me. I think that's a very realistic thing. Matt Ryan's under contract for another year. So do you take a Will Levis? Do you take an Anthony Richardson, somebody who you can sit and try to let develop? Do you take a Cam Ward, someone who needs a little bit more developing, and let him sit? Do you take a Hendon Hooker, who's not going to play next year, more than likely, and let him sit behind Matt Ryan? But then how my mind goes to, how does Colts Nation feel about not waving the white flag, but having Matt Ryan back for another year, knowing odds are his arm's not getting any better. Now, odds are also that your line is going to, like Zach always likes to say, water's going to find its level, right? Like, your line is not this bad. I don't know what it is. Kevin and Query in the mornings in Indianapolis, they discussed it too. Like, I'm really interested in maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, we find out maybe like Quentin Nelson's hurt, or Ryan Kelly's not there, like, and he's checked out, or maybe someone else, maybe Braden Smith has a bum ankle, and we don't know any of this, and that's why they've regressed, because it's so hard to wrap your head around why they regressed so much, right? So it'll be interesting to kind of see with that. But would you be okay with that? And having Matt Ryan for another year and letting somebody sit, but you know that you have your guy. Like, this is the guy that you're going to roll with for the future. Colts House. If we're doing that and holding on to the damn football with WTF cutie Butterfingers, we will do far, far better. Then we can put 100% into QB, just my 3 pennies. Hey, I mean, I think they're all in on quarterback anyway. Going into next year, I think you have to be. I honestly think there's a really good chance that Irsay basically said Ballard, like, "Hey man, you're drafting the QB, man. If you're here, if you want to be here, you're going to get the quarterback. We're not going to trade for a Derek Carr. Trending today obviously was, we're not going to trade for Zach Wilson. We're not going to go out after Aaron Rodgers. We're not doing any of this stuff, right? You're going to get your guy. Like, go get him. And the interesting thing that came out this week when it came to the quarterbacks, which is why I think some people are worried on what Ballard's going to do, is that you hear Ballard was really high on Justin Fields, but he didn't want to pull the trigger. And then you hear Frank Reich really was intrigued by Jalen Hurts. Ballard wanted nothing to do with it. So what's the hesitancy? Like, you're going to have to do it. I think Zach has said it best so many times on this show. The hesitancy to pull the trigger on the quarterback, because you think when you pick a quarterback, you're going to get run out of town, is going to get you run out of town before you're even allowed to pick your quarterback. Like, Frank Reich never got his guy. Like, you could say Carson Wentz was his guy, but Frank Reich never got his guy. And he's out of Indy. He's in Charlotte, North Carolina now, and probably going to get another job somewhere else. So, I mean, it's a great point. Colts House, why is Q getting slung around like a child? Even if everyone was doing bad, he's always stood his ground. Now he gets beat up like a nobody. If Saturday can just fix the O-line alone, I'd be happy. Man, I think that's everybody, man. I think it's everybody would love it. I don't think anybody can explain it, right? Like, Q didn't go soft overnight. Q didn't suddenly decide he wasn't going to block overnight. I don't know. I don't know if maybe it's that he doesn't trust who's on his left and his right. If he doesn't trust who's there to pick up their assignments, and so he's trying to do too much. I know in the Las Vegas game, something I pointed out when I chimed in on the live chat because I was sick, was it's the first game I saw him running down the field, picking ball carriers up, picking receivers up. He seemed more invested. Across the board, like you heard him talk about, he was very emotional when Wright got fired. He felt that it was his fault. And you know what, man? It probably was. It's probably, I mean, the reason a coach gets fired is because you can't fire 53 players. You can't fire the starting 22, right? Like, the reason a coach gets fired is because you can't replace all the players. And if you were playing and you were doing well, the coach is still here. But you weren't playing, you weren't doing well, the coach is gone. I don't know what it is. If Saturday can fix the O-line, and here's the thing too, fixing the O-line isn't getting it back to top 5 elite like it was 2 years ago. Fixing the O-line is making it average. If you can make it average, like get back up to an average O-line, man, it could do wonders for this team. But I think you are who you are at this point. You are who you are in 2022, which is a below average team with a below average O-line. And that's just what it is. Colts House chimes in again. He was talking about D coordinator instead of a defensive head coach, and kind of chiming in with that. He wants an offensive minded head coach. We need great quarterback, football back. It's our identity. It really is. And I think that's some of what makes it hard. Our 2 best quarterbacks of all time were number 1 overall picks, and we've never had to find the quarterback, right? Like, you never had to find. We've ventured through the wilderness before, in the 80s and in the 90s before you got Peyton, but you never had to just like find it. It was like, hey, this is the generational talent, take it. This is the generational talent, take it. So, I mean, it's an interesting thing to see. It's going to be interesting, too, offensive-minded head coaches on where you go with it. A lot of people bring up Sean Payton. Report came out today. He's eyeballing really 2 jobs, which is I believe it was the Chargers. Oh, and drop it in the chat if you guys know. I can't remember the second one. If I were him, I'd take the Chargers in a heartbeat, because I also think Brandon Staley is a horrible head coach. And he probably will be fired at the end of this year, especially if they can get Sean Payton. Basil. No horsing around podcast. Sure. No way I trade up. If someone falls in line, take them. Sure. We owe Ryan money as is, so rolling with him next year would be fine with me. Not ideal, but he's gonna be here. So, I trade up though. Like, if you are like, you got to make a bold move. Like, if that's your dude and that's your guy, man, you got to just go get him. If you think Will Levis is your guy and he's slipping, go get him. If you think Anthony Richardson is your guy and he's staring in your face at 14 and he's not going to be there in the second round, you take him. The Chiefs knew that Mahomes was their guy and they went and got him. The Texans knew Deshaun Watson was their guy and they went and got him. And the Ravens knew Lamar Jackson was their guy and they came up and they got him. You have to be bold. What is it? Fortune favors the bold. You have to be bold when it comes to this. You have to have conviction. And if you're wrong, I'm sorry, you're wrong. And you're probably not going to get another crack at it. But if you're a good GM worth your salt, you may. Look at Joe Douglas in New York. Odds are he's going to get another crack. He's built a really good team with a solid head coach, Robert Saleh, and he's probably going to get another crack outside of the Zach Wilson, misfire. But you're going to have to do it. Like, to do nothing is asinine. And to do nothing, you're going to get fired because you're not, and you're never going to have the chance to have picked your guy. Like, you're never going to have that chance. So I'm all for it. I think, like I said, fortune kind of, the old saying, fortune favors the bold. You've got to go and do it. Like, you got to go and get it done. Tom, if our O line had played like they played against Vegas and the Eagles, we wouldn't be in this mess this year. So the Eagles was a little different. We gave up a few more sacks in the second half, obviously. They've played better, but they are what they are. Like I said earlier, they are what they are. I'm so glad we have not pushed the panic button for a quarterback in the last couple of drafts. They are all terrible in the range that we had a reasonable chance to get. Well, see, that's hindsight, though, man. Basil, I mean, I love the comment because it is something that you look back at and you go, man, in the range we were at, last year, everyone knew last year wasn't a good draft. And I think all of us had even said, it was like, I don't know who you go after. Like, you're kind of picking at straws. Like, do you like Desmond Ridder? We don't even know how he looks. Do you like, such and such or whoever, Kenny Pickett, who went higher? I don't know. But we all kind of knew last year was a bad draft. But, man, you go back 2021, people were salivating over Zach Wilson, right? Like, oh, man, And, I mean, and Justin Fields was there. And when I say, like, when I went on the rant earlier a little bit about, like, being bold with what you do, bold, and I love DeForest Buckner, but bold is not giving up your 13th overall pick for DeForest Buckner when you could have traded up and gotten a Justin Herbert. Now, I know a lot of people say LA was never letting him go, but that would have been a bold move, and he was sitting there too. So, I mean, and the other thing too is you guys have heard me say this. System, location, and coaching matters, right? Like, it matters where you're at and who you're with. Who knows what these guys would have done being in the ecosystem with the Colts, being around Frank Reich at the time, being in that area and developed. Who knows? Who knows what Zach Wilson would have looked like here? Who knows what Justin Fields would have looked like here? Who knows what any of these guys would have looked like? Because you're walking into situations that are, most of the time when you're being a top 5 pick, you're walking into a bad situation, right? So, like, everyone's heard me and my take on Trevor Lawrence, which is he's going to be no better than Andy Dalton because I don't think he can overcome the dysfunction of the Jacksonville Jaguars organization. I say that knowing full well that they beat us in Jacksonville every year, right? And they play us tough every year, but the organization has been dysfunctional since the day that Shad Khan got it and took it, and I've never thought that he could overcome it. But if you were to take him and you put him somewhere else, who knows what he would do, right? If you were to take him and put him with the Steelers, he'd probably be an amazing quarterback. There are very rare. There are tractors and there are trailers, right, at quarterbacks. Tractors pull everyone along with them, and trailers are just along for they don't mess it up. There are very few tractors. That's a Peyton Manning. That's a Patrick Mahomes. That's a Josh Allen, right? And there are very few of those. There are right now. Everyone talks about get me a quarterback who can go win me the game all on his own. Man, there's like 4 of those in the league of 32 teams? Like, that's what everybody's looking for. That's what everybody's looking for. So it's a tough thing. Let any quarterback from Tom Williams, let any quarterback we draft learn under Matt for a year. I think it's a good idea. I mean, I think it might be something that they do. It might be. Now, it could also just be that they clean house this year. Like, that's kind of the interesting thing with this year. Like, we really don't know. Like, we don't know. I see it as a gift. Reich and his offensive staff has been a cancer. Strausser is terrible. Not that big a fan of Adams either. Let's see. So the right guard is an absolute priority if we want Taylor to eat. Trade Mo for one. So it's been interesting. Mo's production really declined, but I think it's because he's been asked to stay in so much more. I agree with Basil. if I start a Twitter mention of Andrew Luck again, if I start seeing Twitter mentions of Andrew Luck again, I'm fist fighting somebody. So here's what that you guys take it if for somehow some way you're new to Colts Nation, take that with a grain of salt. It happens every year. Just ignore it. Like we joke, like all that information. I talked to Zach Kiefer not last year, the year before, I believe, on the podcast one time, and we joked about it. Said Andrew Luck didn't even have he has a flip phone. Like he had no clue any of that's even going on. Basil, man, I'm telling you, we can't get our guy this year. He doesn't exist. Eason 2.0, Fields 2.0, Wilson 2.0. Just my opinion, though. It's not likely. It's likely not worth it. My 2 cents, basically. I don't know, man. I'm going to disagree only because I don't know. I don't know yet. But if you're if you're looking for the perfect prospect, man, they don't exist. They just don't. And you're going to be waiting around forever because next year you're going to be like, well, Caleb Williams is the guy. And then the next year you're going to be like, well, it's such and such. At this time last year, not this time last year, but at the beginning of the season last year, everyone was talking about Spencer Rattler going to the Texans number 1 overall, right? So, I mean, it's such a fluid process, but I think to say they're Eason 2.0, Fields 2.0, Wilson 2.0, the thing with that outside of Eason, right? Who knows how Justin Fields could be if he was in a better environment, more conducive to what he's trying to do, right? Who knows if Wilson would be better if he had a chance to develop more because he was a little younger. I think they're absolutely going to go for a quarterback this year. I would be shocked if they didn't. Let's see, Colts house. I say we go against all odds and get C.J. Stroud. My only thing with that is I think you're going to have to go all the way up to about number 2, my man, to get C.J. Stroud, and that's going to cost a lot. I don't even know if we have the capital to do that. But, I mean, I like C.J. Stroud. My boy Derek Larger, massive Ohio State fan from Bring the Juice. He loves C.J. Stroud. He actually was on with us one time. As soon as we got off the live stream, he actually on his other monitor, he had highlights pulled up of C.J. Stroud for us to see. And then or Young. Hey, I mean, Young could drop I'm because of his size. Harbaugh. I'm assuming you're talking about Jim Harbaugh is what you want for your next head coach. I'll take Ryan with a strong line and a solid corner over a quarterback, unless we see our guy. That's when we dive deep, be willing to gamble and lose to get our superstar. So I think what you put in capital letters is the biggest key. Our guy. Nobody knows who that is, right? Like nobody knows who our guy is. Is it C.J. Stroud? Is it Cam Ward? Is it Will Levis? Nobody knows who our guy is yet. They probably don't even know who our guy is. Now, they might. They've been going to a ton of games. Like I said, I think 4 for Kentucky, 3 for Florida. I think they've been to some Ohio State games. I believe they were at the UT Alabama game. I know they were at the UT Kentucky game. So, I mean, who knows what that is. But the part about gamble and lose to get our superstar, I don't think they're ever – we've had Kent Sterling on and we had James Harrison on, sorry. And I don't think we've ever heard anybody say they're not going to try to lose. Like it's just not going to happen. It's not in professional sports athletes' DNA to do that. But I get where you're coming from with it. Basil, you can say it's hindsight, but maybe give Ballard credit for making that decision before it was hindsight. Hey, I give him credit. Like I'll give him credit. I give Ballard credit where credit is due in regards to making passes on the correct players. I still think that he should have drafted. I mean, I'll die on the hill that I think he should have drafted Justin Fields. That's just me. But sometimes you can't be afraid to take a swing. Like you're going to constantly pass, and some of these guys haven't worked out, obviously. But you passed on some guys that did, and they were there for you. My only problem with Chris Ballard is inability to pull the trigger during free agency. Yeah, we talk about that every year, man. Colts house, we talk about that. I feel like that's a thing every year. It's his philosophy. It's kind of his flawed philosophy, which is you build from within, but you've got to be able to patch holes with free agency, man. Basil, I think you're cherry picking when suggesting you're favoring the bold. What about all the terrible trade ups that failed? Hey, that's true, man. That's true. But you got to do something, man. You can't just sit on your hands and do nothing and keep bringing in veteran quarterbacks. There's a lot of bad trades that happen. Absolutely. Basil, you are 100% correct. There are some really bad trades that people make, right? I mean, the Bears traded up one spot, gave up a ton of stuff to go get Mitchell Trubisky. You're right. But you know what? They thought that was their guy. They did. And they made a move for it. And they were wrong. Like they were wrong, but they at least did it. But yeah, there are for every good trade like a Patrick Mahomes, there's a bad trade like Mitchell Trubisky. For every good trade like Julio Jones to Atlanta, where they moved way up, there's a half a dozen bad trades. But eventually, you just have to you have to at least try. Like it looks like a lack of trying, honestly. We're gonna go like probably about another 15 minutes, you guys. Tom Williams, no Ohio State quarterback. Okay. So I'd be remiss if I didn't channel my inner Derek Larger. Guys, quarterbacks aren't made from the programs they come from, right? Like you can point out, like, oh, Dwayne Haskins was bad, Troy Smith was bad, um, Cardell Jones never made it in the NFL. All these things. There was never a really great quarterback from Tennessee till Peyton Manning. Name me another quarterback that made it out of Wyoming except for Josh Allen, right? Name me. There was a lot of failed Alabama quarterbacks till Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa, right? Like there's like it's to put it on a school. I'll give it to you when it was like Urban Meyer there and he ran a very unique system. And you had Braxton Miller and things like that. JT Barrett, I get that, but no, man, this like to pin it down to the school doesn't produce these players. I think it's a lazy argument sometimes because, like I said, they're who had ever thought that there would be an amazing quarterback from Wyoming? You know, name me another quarterback from Alcorn State besides Steve McNair, right? I mean, talent's talent. Doesn't matter where you go to school. The NFL finds the talent. Gordon, Colts win. Yes, we're going to get to that in just a minute, you guys. I want you go ahead and start dropping in your predictions for the Steelers Colts game, and I'll give you guys mine. Basil, Elway existed, Peyton existed, Luck existed. You younger fellows have an uneven viewpoint of how lucky the Colts have been the last 20 years. Look at the Browns. Hey, I'm with you. Like that's a common argument that gets made is how spoiled we are that we went from Peyton to Luck. It's 100%. There are a lot of teams that have wandered in the wilderness, right? I mean, look, your first two examples. Elway retired. They searched forever till they got Peyton. Then Peyton retired, and they've searched forever, and they've tried to fill it with other players. It's 100% true. I get that. I 100% get that. It is a valid argument. Goran, we should have kept Malik Hooker. I miss that guy. Okay, I liked Malik, but Malik hasn't really done a lot in the league. Hey, buddy, I remember Brian Greasy. Absolutely, right? Ben Bannigue, the worst pick in Ballard's career. I don't know about that. There's some bad ones. There's a handful of bad ones. Ben Bannigue was a high one that made you kind of do a double take. But no GM is 100% on picks. But the issue with Ballard is he relies so heavily on them, he pins himself in. Basil, how quickly you forget how bad Grigson was with free agency and how few free agents Polian used. Are we going to poo-poo on the Polian teams? It's a good question. It's a good point, right? Like Grigson went all in on free agency, and you had like LaRon Landry. Polian didn't really he did not do a ton in free agency, but he kind of cherry picked where he needed a little bit. And, you know, the big difference between both Grigson and Polian. So Grigson had Luck, who patched holes because of how good he was, and Polian had Peyton Manning that completely covered massive holes for the Colts, right? So it's good points. Colts have not won against the Steelers since 2008. We will finally beat them Monday, 28-10. Yes. Let's get to the predictions, you guys. Like I want to get your guys' predictions in here. Polian was a good coach from what I've heard, only a fan since 2002. Okay, so Polian was the GM. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Hey, it's okay, man. We're not all fans from like 1995. I've been a fan of the Colts for 30 plus years. So, I mean, that's going back to like 1990. somewhere around there. Basil Hooker's balling out this year. Thanks. I didn't really know. The only player on the defense that I tend to recognize for the Cowboys is Micah Parsons right now because that guy is unreal. I'm a young house. Very nice Colts. Goran, but he's A-B, but he's never played because he's not a guy. Draft QB next 3 picks O-line. Truett, thank you for jumping in. Please don't compare Polian to Gregson. It's a great point. Corey Lampkin, yes. Oh, did I miss that Corey's in here? Corey, thank you so much if you're in here, man. There you are, man. Corey, I appreciate you jumping in even without Zach here. So shout out to you, Corey. Yes, unless one of our DBs gets stabbed in the leg again. Great points. And there's my wife, one of the first ladies of No Horsing Around, kind of blowing a little bit of a kiss. So, okay. Let's kind of round this out with the Steelers versus the Colts. Like Corey said, I want to get your guys, everyone who's in the chat, I want to get your guys' opinion on what we think. What's your prediction? What's your score prediction? Who's a player that you're going to watch? So for me, most of the time, this is where I bounce it to Zach. He gives his opinion, and I'm going to give mine. For me, I think the Colts are going to win. I'm not going to shoot as high as 28 because I've not seen them do that but once. I'm going to go 17-10. Colts over the Steelers on Monday Night Football. I think they're going to come out. I think they're going to want to play well. It's a standalone game. It's Monday Night Football. The Steelers are not a great team. I do worry about their defense. Someone asked me how many sacks do I think TJ Watt's going to get. I think not as many as you think because I think they've shown that they're a little bit better than when they let Judon get like 5 sacks in one game on them. But I do think he's going to probably get like 1. But they're going to look to kind of keep him contained more. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I'm going to look to see, I think Jonathan Taylor's another week healthier. I think they're going to look to get him going more. Yeah, so that's kind of, I'm going to go 17-10, Colts over them, Colts over the Steelers. I also think you're going to have a chance that you're going to get a couple of gifts from Kenny Pickett. He's not played great this year. Noisick, trade for CeeDee Lamb. Just kidding. Colts house. Colts 23, Steelers 17. Basil, where are you at? Goran, where are you at with your guys' picks? I want to see what you guys have to say in regards to who you guys are thinking is going to come out on Monday Night Football. While you guys are dropping those in, yet again, you guys, we always like to take a moment and just thank you guys. It's amazing to be on here. It's amazing that I can come on and I can have this kind of interaction with you guys and let you guys kind of run this chat, run this live stream. Me and Zach are really grateful for it. You know, we went over 2K subscribers. We're getting close to 2.1 already, which is mind-blowing for us. We love it. We used to joke in the beginning when we first started this, if we had one person come in here, we're grateful. So when we have hundreds and thousands come in and watch us and interact with us, like, we're blown away. And we couldn't do any of it without you guys. So if you've not joined the family, there's ways you can join it to kind of help the channel. There's ways that you can join it just to be part of it. You know, hit subscribe, ding the bell so you don't miss the live streams, because we go live every Wednesday, 9:15 Eastern, 8:15 Central Time, my time, and we love to hear from you guys. So let's kind of see if anybody else. Basil, Colts win 17-9. Oh, Steelers look bad versus RD. That's really close to my prediction. I like it. Goran's got the Colts winning. Love it. Basil, enjoy the show. It's fun to talk Colts, even if Zach makes me want to pull my hair out sometimes. I'm sure he'll appreciate that, because sometimes that's what we go for, right? Like we've done hot takes. We try to avoid clickbait on some of our stuff, but we definitely do some hot takes on things every once in a while. I'm going to kind of wrap this up. If you guys got any more score predictions, drop them in there. Cheers. See you guys on the battlefield. Agree. If you guys are with family, I want to say this one. I want to say this here at the very end. If you guys are spending time with family, if you guys are spending time just by yourself, please enjoy the holidays. Enjoy the day of football. eat some turkey, ham, whatever you guys are going to do. Enjoy Thanksgiving. We love you guys. We're going to be back. We'll probably drop a couple episodes between now and the game on Monday. But until then, you guys, I love you. I know Zach's not here, and I know he loves you. And we'll talk to you guys later.